My career was all over the place. I had no idea what I was doing. Research is actually how I started thinking about the United States. When you meet the right people at the right time, that's when your career starts to kick off. You got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. A lot of people could argue, okay, that was through connections. So yeah, but how did you get the connections? It's incredible. The possibilities are basically endless. If you want to achieve something, this is the country for you. This is where dreams happen. It just goes by so fast. If you work hard enough, everybody gets there.
Hey everyone, welcome to one more episode of MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analysis Academy. We have a superstar student from our program here today, Mohamed Doma. He's from Egypt and he's doing now a research fellowship at MGH, Massachusetts General Harvard Medical School. Really an incredible student, lots of research. He's going to tell us all about his journey so far, how he landed a great position here in research in Boston, and the next steps in his career. So Mohamed, thank you so much for joining. Really happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Before I jump over to introductions and start asking Mohamed questions, I just want to remind everyone that what we discuss is not affiliated with MGH or Harvard or the institutions that we mention here. The opinions are exclusively our own. And I also want to invite you guys to join the Meta-Analysis Academy waitlist. We'll train you on how to do really impactful research and publications to do very well in your career. So Mohamed, let's start with where you're from. Tell us about your upbringing, your background, the origins.
All right. So as you just mentioned, I'm originally from Egypt. I went to Alexandria Faculty of Medicine, which is one of the 3 cities that are still named after Alexander the Great. It's of Greek origins, but I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I went to British schools for mostly my entire life. And then I started med school in 2015, graduated in 23. And I started my research fellowship mid-2025. But my research journey began a long time way before that. It's been all about trial and error. You've been taking that course, taking this course, doing this, doing that. And eventually it all led me here. It was not about just a single step. But you do have to highlight that some steps are not just like the others. Some of them just introduce you to a bunch of whole new people. Shout out to all my friends from the Meta Academy, by the way.
Mm-hmm. You're super well connected.
Congratulations on everyone who matched, by the way, and even for fellowships, not just for residency.
True.
Yuri, Mangesh, and Chamukh, especially. These are my dream team.
Yeah.
And ever since I started wondering about research, I kind of knew that this was mine. This was how I'm going to shine. This was how I'm going to have an edge over everybody else. Because where I'm from, and where probably mostly everybody is from, research is not really something that's important. They don't highlight that in your medical career.
Right.
I'm not a first-gen medical student. My parents are doctors. I come from a long lineage of doctors. Nobody knew what I was doing. I tell you that. Nobody had any idea. And I'm not denying any of my family's support. Obviously not. But at some point, they were very worried. They were like, what are you doing? Why?
Why don't you just do a residency and become a doctor?
Everybody is starting residency from my class. Everybody's starting residency. Some of them actually went to different countries. And that's where I come. So I started the Meta Academy course on the 4th cohort.
Okay. So
which is somewhere around my graduation. It was somewhere around 2023.
Yeah.
And
second semester 2023.
Yes. And before that, my only experience with research has been about failures. For the most part, I had a lot of people who usually they mass recruit a lot of medical students. Sometimes they give them a lot of illusions about you're going to become an author, you're going to become co-author. Nobody explains that. You just go in, you do all the dirty work, and you don't get any recognition. You don't get any skills. You don't win.
Yeah,
basically, they do.
There's a lot of predatory programs out there.
And that's where I was like, no, I have to learn this. You got to look everywhere. I didn't care about what I was going to do. I just did everything. And I started one step at a time until I came across the Meta Academy. I started very slow. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do. You just start with the basics. I know now that a lot of people are doing meta-analysis, not just from the Meta Academy. Everybody is doing meta-analysis. Some of them are high quality, some of them are not.
Yeah.
But that's how you're going to start. You just start basic. My first meta-analysis, I was actually the first one to publish a meta-analysis for my experts group. And at some point, I felt like this was going to die. Like everybody's just was not interested anymore. I was the only one helping, apart from, of course, a bunch of my co-authors. But at some point, I just did not realize that this was going to go live. And so I just did it. All the way until the deadline of that first conference submission. I remember it was January the 10th and January 9th, somewhere around like 9 to 10 p.m. I was just like, I got to submit something. I just got to do something. I don't know how. I just got to do something. And that's what I did. I just
sat down and figured it out.
I sat down. I took it one step at a time. It was a simple pairwise meta-analysis. I just sat down and I was like, okay, I'm just going to take it one step. I'm just going to watch Dr. Anderson's videos one more time at 2x, just because I've watched it already once before. Mm-hmm. And I took it one step and then I got the results and I was like, okay, I have something. Let's just draft it really quickly. And then I did. 10 minutes earlier, I just sent it to my senior and he was like, wow, when did you do all this? We just met a few days ago and it was basically just an idea.
Yeah.
I did it.
Just to explain to people, because they don't understand how that's possible. It's because when you do a meta-analysis, the data, they're not from your own institution. They're data that's publicly available. So you can be on a Saturday night or on January 9th, with a short deadline. And you can develop ideas with autonomy from your living room, from your bedroom, and with your computer and an internet connection, and you can build projects that are actually meaningful, get accepted to conferences, published in great journals, and this, what Mohamed just described, is what we call deadline mode. It's like you're operating like at a hyper state of awareness, and just the speed and meta-analysis allows for that.
I got to tell you though, that it's not like I just all of a sudden I found that the deadline was 2 days later. I actually started planning for that conference 2 months in advance, but I didn't do anything because that's when the cohort was actually still going on. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait until it ends, like everybody does. I'm just going to wait. All of my teammates from that expert group were waiting as well. And I was like, but no, I think I can achieve something. I just need to just focus, sit down, and just submit something totally preliminary. It doesn't have to be totally complete, but then you enhance that later on.
Yeah, you get better over time. That's for sure. At this point, so this was 2023, and we're now spring of 2026. At this point, how many papers do you think you've published?
I had a bunch of one of those predatory papers that I was just talking about. Ones where you basically trust someone and you start doing all the dirty work in the paper, and then you end up being like fourth or fifth author, sometimes even not that. But I had a bunch of those and I had no idea what I was doing. I even had a bunch of cohort studies published during COVID, but that was basically a bunch of very high profile people from multiple universities that were looking for real world data. And it was just like, let's go all just to the archives and just gather some data from our university hospital and just submit it on RedCap, and that was it. However, this is something that actually at least exposed me to how the world of research actually works. Everybody is just looking for their best interest. However, when you meet the right people at the right time, that's when your career starts to kick off. And a little bit of a flashback a while before that. So I had, I'm not exaggerating when I say meta-analysis, particularly the academy, it actually saved my career. My career was all over the place. I had no idea what I was doing. I took a bunch of different exams to just do residency in multiple countries, not just one. I was not focused on a particular target. Research is actually how I started thinking about the United States. So I took exams to apply for residency in the UK. I started learning German language. And I actually got very far.
Wow.
But then eventually, once I submitted that manuscript, that abstract that I was just talking about, fast forward a few months, it was accepted. The conference was SKY, by the way, which is the main conference for interventional cardiology.
Yeah, it's a big conference.
And I started planning on going there, but it was just like, okay, I'll just go present my abstract and just come back home. Nothing much is going to happen. And that's when everything started shaping itself. I just went there. I met a bunch of people and I was like, hi, I'm Mohamed. I came from Egypt. I don't want to do residency in the United States. I don't want to do research in the United States. It's just having fun presenting and I'm just going to go back home. somebody from that conference who's actually my senior to this day, and it's a connection that I've made, and hopefully it's going to last a lifetime. He was like, you did the hard part. Like, everybody takes the steps. Everybody does rotations. There's nothing special about that. A lot of people do get higher scores than others, obviously. But not everybody does research. And I started reminiscing, and I was like, okay, that's actually why I got into research in the first place, because I knew that was going to be my edge. And he was like, if you wanted somewhere where everybody's going to appreciate what you do, the United States is for you, basically. And I started reading about that, and I realized if you want to achieve something, this is the country for you. This is where dreams happen. It's not an exaggerating when they say the American dream. It's true.
Yeah.
It might take longer for others, but eventually, if you work hard enough, everybody gets there.
Yeah. I agree with that. I've had a great career here in this country. The institutions here have afforded me incredible opportunities, a great career, something that I don't think I would be able to achieve in Brazil. Egypt, I think, would be very difficult too. So, where are you right now in your careers? You mentioned this great story about the connections, about going to Sky and presenting conferences and publishing papers. And then you learned meta-analysis. That changed your career, as you said. Where are you now? Tell us about this research fellowship that you're doing, how you got this position. How has it been so far?
So this starts with Sky 2024, May of 2024, when I went to Long Beach, California to present. And I started connecting with peers from the academy. I met Pedro for the first time in that conference. And I was like, hi, I know you. You're very famous because obviously you are doing a lot of tutoring sessions over there. And I've seen a lot of his work. And he started talking to me, and it was just a big deal, okay?
Yeah,
fast forward a few months, I'm presenting again at TCT. I meet him again. Fast forward a few months, I'm presenting again at ACC 24, 25. And he's like, man, you're everywhere. And I'm like, I know, that's the point. However, just going back again to Sky, that's when I decided I want to be in the United States. I want to start doing research in the United States. I want to start doing, I want to be a doctor in the United States. And so I started looking over these research fellowships. I wouldn't say it was unknown, but it was relatively unknown compared to now. There wasn't as much competition. Nobody knew that you needed to do research to match. Obviously you don't, but nobody.
It's a helping.
Of course, it's a massive help, but nobody back then, they did not have the philosophy of, okay, I'm going to finish med school. I'm just going to go for a couple of years, do a research fellowship, and then apply for the match. So it wasn't as competitive back then. It was easier to get feedback, but still, it was amazing how I just realized, okay, a lot of people are getting good at this. I'm not having an edge anymore. And so I started cold emailing, which is obviously the first step. You get some responses. Some of them are a little discouraging. Some of them are not, but still, you do get a little bit of responses at first. Maybe now it's a little bit more difficult to get responses, but you can still feel when somebody wants you or not. And then I get a bunch of responses. They're all very discouraging. And I'm like, okay, then I need to work a little bit on myself. I started exploring different ways of doing a meta-analysis. And so, as I mentioned, my first meta-analysis was a regular, pairwise, binary outcome meta-analysis, had nothing special about it. I published that somewhere around that year. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. I need to look for something more, look for more. And so I started exploring network meta-analyses. I started exploring doing continuous outcome meta-analysis.
By the way, we teach all this stuff in the Meta-Analysis Academy. He's minimizing like the simple pairwise meta-analysis, but that what he means by that it's the traditional meta-analysis. Two groups, intervention A versus intervention B. And it's most meta-analysis are pairwise meta-analysis. I built my whole career on those simple pairwise meta-analysis, but we also teach these advanced methods, network, and other types of meta-analysis.
So a little bit before that, I met somebody who was a cardiology fellow somewhere in Chicago. I'm going to get to where this particular person was important in my career in a bit. But he told me something because back then he was asking me to look for research ideas, and I started immediately exploring ideas in interventional cardiology because that's what I thought I liked. That's the only thing I did, by the way. It wasn't just because I liked it. But he looked at me, he's like, okay, hold on. I know you're going to do a really great meta-analysis anywhere in interventional cardiology. But the thing about becoming a physician, especially in the United States, is that you got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to look for something else. I explored a little bit I went far enough to learn about what is it called? Gynecology and cardiology, and intersection between both.
Cardio OB.
Cardio OB. And I started exploring that, and something I've never in my entire life thought I would ever be reading about, but I did. And I found a really good idea. The newest RCT that was done on that idea was in 2005, and nobody did a meta-analysis. So I was like, okay, let's do that. And I did it, and it was published in one of the highest impact cardio OB journals.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know this story. That's great.
That was actually recent, but not because I was late. It was because the journal itself took a very long time, which is something sometimes it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
But it can eventually the result is worth it. It's really worth it. And then I submitted that to AHA. I still had interventional cardiology on the top of my head. So I was like, okay, I need to do something in interventional cardiology.
Yeah.
Somebody told me, why would you submit that to AHA again? You could submit it to TCT so that you can have a little bit of a diversity.
It's a big conference, the biggest conference in interventional cardiology.
And so I did it. I did a network meta-analysis for the first time, and I submitted it to TCT. And then I had a major problem. TCT was on October 27th, I believe. And AHA was November 17, 2 different states, 2 weeks apart. And I was like, okay, but am I going to travel from Egypt all the way to Washington, D.C. for TCT and then come back and then go back again for Chicago for AHA? Obviously, that was not a choice. I was either going to stay in the United States and do absolutely nothing, or I had no idea what I was going to do. So basically, I reached out to that person once again, and I was like, I have a major problem. A problem I wish everybody would have, by the way, is that you have 2 major conferences, you're accepted in both, but you have no idea what you're going to do between them. And so I spoke with him, and I was like, I'm kind of looking for a rotation somewhere around early November until late November in Chicago. If it's in DC, then it would be better if it starts in October so that I can be done in time for AHA. He was recently matched at the University of Illinois, and then he spoke with one of his attendings, and I got a rotation for the entire month.
Nice.
I spent the entire month in Chicago. I did, and I spent a lot of time talking about my research. I still collaborate with a lot of those mentors to this day, even though none of them are currently in this city or in my institution. But I still keep in touch. And that was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. And even if you feel research was not very significant, a lot of people could argue, okay, that was through connections. So yeah, but how did you get the connections? So
research. People often ask me, which one is more important? Is it the publications or the networking? Those 2 things don't compete with each other. They corroborate each other. Like through these publications, you can build connections. Mohamed was at Sky presenting research, and he met someone who became a mentor. And then through research, he even got opportunities for the observership. So you can actually open a lot of opportunities in your career for networking and collaborations by doing research and inviting the right people to be a part of your group.
And I got to tell you, it's also it's much easier when you're around, when everybody sees you. Like I just said, Pedro, when he saw me, he was like, "You're everywhere," and that's kind of the point. I know I was a little fortunate to be able to go through to all of these conferences. Most of these, only one of them was actually somehow financially covered. And I understand that's a big burden. But I got to tell you, if you can, it's definitely worth it. Don't hesitate. Everything intersects. And that brings me to AHA, mid-November 2024, where I actually, a few days earlier, I had my interview for my current position. At that point, I was emailing a lot of doctors. I had a bunch of interviews, but that interview itself was kind of important because I did feel like he appreciated everything that I was doing. He appreciated the fact that I was in the United States rotating, even though there was no guarantee I could get a research fellowship. And so I researched that physician, who's my current PI. I realized he had a team of 3 research fellows. All of them were presenting at AHA. And that was my kind of, okay, there you go. I mean, my friends like to call it like a headhunt. I usually like to prepare a list of people that I want to network with. It's usually it's usually never a coincidence. Sometimes you need to plan things just so that you can get where you want to be. And so I planned everything. I even emailed some of them. Only one of them got back to me. And then we had like a little chat about the environment and the research lab and all that stuff. And so I did meet that person. I met my other research fellows in that team. We spoke for a little bit. I don't think this established a strong connection, but what it did was it introduced me to everything they were doing in the lab. And so fast forward a few months, I had another interview, another round of interview with that PI. And now I know what happened during that time. I was in competition with someone. And the reason why I was able to prevail was because I knew a lot about their lab environment. Because I spoke to a bunch of research fellows. Some would say, okay, but you were in AHA and they were too. I don't think that was the reason. I feel like you could have basically emailed any of them. You could have reached out on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You could have reached out on anywhere. But I was fortunate because I used the chance that I already had. When I traveled back from home all the way and knowing that I'm going to spend the whole month in Chicago, I had no idea I was going to get that interview during that point. So yeah, that's basically how research has helped me all the way until this point.
And also initiative. I think that's the other point. It's just like you're proactively and going after these opportunities and engaging and talking to people and building a list, as you said, of people you want to connect with.
I still do that.
Yeah. How's research fellowship going? Like, what's it like to be a research fellow at MGH Harvard?
It's incredible. Like, I'm very fortunate to be where I am. We do a bunch of research work. I was just speaking to Dr. Enchen about this. We do translational research. We do clinical research. We work with databases. We do prospective studies. The possibilities are basically endless. You can do whatever you want to do. You have the support, the finances. You have everything you need to basically keep moving forward wherever you are. But the thing is, it's just the hustle, the speed of the life in the United States, especially at big institutions. It just goes by so fast.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I got here in mid-2025. I realized we're mid-2026 now. It's been almost
a year.
It's a year.
Yeah.
And time flies by so fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very fortunate and very glad to be where I am. I've learned a lot of things. I've made a lot of connections. Every time I speak with someone, usually my main icebreaker is discussing a potential meta-analysis, even if I'm not going to do it. But it's something that I've learned. It's something that I've kind of expanded my expertise in. And I've reached the point where even if I cannot do a meta-analysis with that person, I can start discussing it. And that's kind of like an icebreaker. It's going to get me to connect with that person on multiple levels. It's going to lead to maybe a handshake later on when we meet, whether in office or somewhere outside. And that's actually how everything has been. I see someone, either they're giving a lecture in grand rounds, or they just published a recent paper about something. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Can we do a meta-analysis about that? And then I expand. And then he's in his head, he's like, okay, that guy spoke to me about my work. So he must be really interested.
He's paying attention. Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where you meet that person among 30 or 40,000 attendants in a conference. He sees you from afar and he says, hi. And I was like, oh my God, he's talking to me.
Yeah. No, it's you've just listed like a bunch of ways in which doing research, meta-analysis has helped your career. And I just want to remind everyone that, this is a skill that it's well within your reach. Like, you could be in Egypt, you could be in Brazil, where I'm from. Mariana's from Colombia. She was just here before Mohamed. Wherever you are, you can learn this skill. And it really opens great doors in your career. So, Mohamed, as we wrap up, like, what's the next step in your career? It would be logical that you would, with all this, going back to what that attending told you at Sky in 2024, it would mean like you've done so much. Like, you're so far ahead of the curve of so many of the game as compared to many other people. It would make sense that you're going to build a killer application for internal medicine. What do you think?
True. Yeah, I hope so. And yeah, I mean, right now we just got a new research grant. We're starting a new research project. Very confidential, by the way, but we're just going to give you this for the audience. It's sponsored by Apple. So it's something that everybody's excited about. I hope
that's so cool. It's a research grant from Apple. That's awesome.
I hope that wouldn't interfere with my short-term match plans, but if it does, I still feel like it's going to be worth it over the long run.
Are you applying this next year? TBD.
Apart from that potential grant, yes.
Nice. I always finish with this question. Like, what do you do as like a hobby? Like when you're not publishing meta-analysis and going to worldwide conferences and, doing your research fellowship, like what do you like to do for fun?
I do a lot of things for fun, and it's very important to blow off some steam. I go for walks. I obviously I work out, but something a lot of people make fun of me because of it, because I wrote it in my CV. I was actually a champion in skipping ropes.
Wow.
Yes, so that's something I do.
There are championships in skipping ropes.
Nobody knew about that until I told them. So yeah, there are. And yeah, I mean, I do a lot of things apart from research and apart from medical work. I like to think that my go-to hobby would always have something to do with medicine. I don't like to separate those too much, because the more you separate them, that particular distance is going to affect you later on. So I kind of like to always do something that involves health, medicine. I wouldn't say I would read research papers in my free time, but I would look up what everybody's up to. I would check updates on X, LinkedIn. I would want to be up to date with what everybody is doing. And yeah, that's also one of the reasons how you can start conversations later on. All has to do with your research, your lifestyle, your hobbies. Everything is kind of interconnected somehow.
Very good, Mohamed. Thank you so much for coming, for sharing your story. And we've been knowing each other in these conferences for a few years right now, and I've always wanted to get you on here at MetaCast to share your story. Really glad you can make it. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. And hopefully I'll be back in a few years.
Oh, for sure.
So we can have a different type of conversation.
I'm looking forward to the next steps in your career. I know for a fact that you're likely to match very well and then do cardiology and be a superstar in the field. So congrats.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. So this was MetaCast, podcast of the Meta-Analysis Academy. Dr. Mohamed Doma, superstar of the Meta-Analysis Academy. I want to invite you to watch the other episodes too. Subscribe to our channel, check out our other social media, share this video with your friends, and also make sure to join the wait list of the Meta-Analysis Academy so you can learn how to publish really impactful papers, make connections, go to global conferences like Mohamed. Thank you for watching MetaCast.